is Senator Sam Caligiuri.
Thank you, Dan, and good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Caligiuri, and I'm running to be your congressman. And we don't have a lot of time here tonight, and so I want to focus specifically on the big issues that I'd like to work on for you. But before I do, let me say this. I know many of you here tonight have been longtime activists in the Republican Party. And I've been active in the Republican Party. I'm 43 years old since I was 18 years old. And I cannot remember a year when we have had so many outstanding candidates for Republican nomination from top to bottom, governor, U.S. Senate, and this congressional race, and we do this year. I've never been prouder to be a Republican in Connecticut. This is going to be a great year for us. We've got the right message at the right time, and we're going to bring it home with your help. There are two big issues that I'd like to tackle: government reform and bringing fiscal conservatism back to Washington, D.C. The system in Washington is broken. That's why people are incredibly cynical about the political process today. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting to get a different result. If we don't change the system in Washington, we're going to continue to get poor output from Washington leaders, and we need to change it. I would do it in three ways. One, by term limiting myself and pushing for term limit legislation, because we need to get careerism out of Washington politics. Number two, banning earmarks, because they not only promote waste, they promote corruption. Nobody should trade a vote or vote for something that they don't support because they want to bring pork home back to their district. There's a better way to bring resources to your district. And the third thing is to push for campaign finance reform so that committee chairs and ranking members can't raise money from the very industries that they regulate. There is an inherent conflict of interest in that. It's corrupting the system. It's corrupted Chris Dodd, and we need to put an end to it. And those are some of the changes that I'm going to fight for. On the fiscal side, we need to get spending under control in Washington. I'm going to fight to bring enforceable spending caps in place on the entire federal budget. I'm going to fight to make sure that the federal stimulus dollars do not become a permanent part of the federal budget. That's one quick way of immediately reducing federal spending. And the way we're really going to grow the economy is through broad-based tax cuts. That's the pro-growth economic agenda that I'm going to fight for. But let me tell you what I believe makes me different and ultimately stronger as our Republican candidate than the gentleman that I shared the stage with today, for whom I have a great deal of respect. I'm the one candidate in the race who's had the experience to do the things that I say I'm going to do when I go to Washington. And at a time when people are incredibly angry and cynical about politics, it's critical that we have as our congressperson and as our candidate someone who not only talks the talk, but can walk it. You know, I served as acting mayor of Waterbury at one of the toughest times in the city's history. The Hartford Courant said in my tenure that I served with this distinction, that I provided new hope for Waterbury. And I did it by leading one of the most aggressive ethics reforms that Connecticut has ever seen. I did it by negotiating collective bargaining agreements that saved millions of dollars for our taxpayers. And I did it by when power got handed to me, when I became the acting mayor of Waterbury, when I walked in for surgery, and literally as I was about to go under, the surgeon said that Phil Giordano had gotten arrested, and I woke up from that surgery the mayor of Waterbury, if you can believe it. I still can't believe it sometimes. I said no to power, and I wasn't going to run in my own right. So when I talk about term limits, when I talk about government reform, I've done it. And on the fiscal side, in one of the toughest votes I've ever had to cast as a state senator, I ended up being the only senator at the time to vote against the 2007 state budget. I did it because I couldn't vote for a budget that violated the state spending cap and which I believed was going to result in massive deficits. If you want someone who has a proven record of being willing to stand up and say no to crazy spending, someone who's going to have credibility when we're in a knife fight with Chris Murphy, and you know it's going to be a tough fight, I believe I'm that candidate. I'm proud to have Nancy Johnson's support. I'm proud to have Kevin Whitcose's support. I'm proud to have Tim Lejett's support. I'd like to have your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Candidates, our first of two questions. Chris Murphy's name has been mentioned, so we will direct our attention to a statement he made in regards to a judge's decision to keep the Pratt & Whitney jobs in Connecticut. Chris Murphy stated, quote, "Pratt did not bargain in good faith. It's time for Pratt to get serious about negotiating a deal with labor and government to keep these jobs here for the long haul." End quote. Yes or no? Do you believe that these sentiments will allow any company to maintain and increase employment in the state of Connecticut in this global economy?
Yes or no answer. My answer is no. will not help. Justin's right. What those sentiments miss is the underlying reasons why Pratt felt they needed to move the jobs out of Connecticut in the first place. And unless we adopt a pro-growth economic policy nationally, we will never grow jobs in Connecticut again. We have to start by controlling federal spending and reducing it. We've got to reduce the federal deficit, and then we can responsibly engage in broad-based tax cuts in both the corporate rate and the individual rate, so we can start putting money back into the economy, not into the government's pockets, which doesn't help grow jobs. Those sentiments are demagoguery. They're not going to help grow jobs. They're only going to make things worse.
Thank you, Senator. Candidates, as you know, the President of the United States about 2 weeks ago met with House Republicans in Baltimore, and the specific discussion seemed to center around health care. The President looking for the House Republicans' plan for health care. So if you were across the table from the President of the United States, what would you tell him about Senator Caligiuri?
Thank you, Dan. What I would tell the President respectfully but firmly is that we need to increase access to health care. We need to make it more affordable, but we can do it without the public option, and we can do it without growing the size of government. And here's how we would do it for starters. If you look at the data, a majority of the uninsured in Connecticut and nationally work. And a majority of those individuals work for the smallest businesses and companies in our state and nationally. What that tells me is that the heart of the problem is that it's not affordable for small employers to provide health insurance to their employees. If that's the essence of the problem, why aren't we focused on solving that? I believe I can do that, and we can do that, as I propose doing in Connecticut, by offering a 50% refundable tax credit for small business for the cost of providing insurance to their employees. That would dramatically change the economics and the affordability of providing it, and I believe you would see many, many more small employers providing it to their employees. The second important change we can make is to levelize the tax treatment between individuals who buy health insurance in the group market and individuals who buy it in the individual market. Right now, if you're buying it in the group market, you're buying it with pre-tax dollars, which gives you a tax advantage, which is great. But if you're buying it as an individual in the individual market, you're buying it with after-tax dollars, which gives you a significant tax disadvantage. If we just simply levelize the tax treatment and allow individuals to buy with pre-tax dollars, that would be another substantial step in favor of making it more affordable for individuals. Finally, I would just say I'm in favor of supporting the exclusion for pre-existing conditions, but I think we need to find a way to do it without creating an individual mandate for insurance. That's what I would respectfully tell the President.
Thank you, Senator.